Yes, Girija.
Shall I start? Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, okay, thanks. So I hope my screen is visible. So good evening, everyone. I'm Girija. I'm a PhD student at IIT
I
Madras.
can't hear you, Girija. Or can anyone hear?
Am I audible?
Pooja, can you hear Girija?
Yes, ma'am. She is audible.
Okay.
Okay.
Please continue.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just.
I'm not able to hear.
The voice
Girija. Yeah, Girija. Can you start from the beginning? We just started hearing your voice. Yeah.
Okay, sure, sure. I hope I'm audible and the screen is visible. Am I audible?
Girija, we can't hear you. Are you using a microphone or?
Yes, yes, yes. I have also shared the screen.
Can you hear her now?
Yeah, can anyone?
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Am I
I think.
audible? Okay.
Okay. Girija, please.
Yeah, okay, thanks, thanks. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Girija. I'm a PhD student at IIT Madras. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about mental stress and what are my ways to deal with it. So, as we all know, our mental and physical health, they affect each other in negative as well as positive ways. So, when we have stress, it also affects our sleep. And then during the day, we sometimes lose concentration on our work and we feel lack of enthusiasm during the day. Sometimes, if we are not able to manage our stress properly, then it may spoil our relationships with other people. In fact, the ill effects of stress, it's a long list. But what I'm going to share today is some of my learnings from uh, the way I thought about the stress and I try to educate myself about it, and some of the things that I tried personally and what worked for me. So, one thing that gives me stress is excessive thinking. So, suppose I'm thinking about a situation, especially when the situation is not in my own way and it's not in my control, then we tend to think a lot about it. We keep thinking, and eventually we start making fictional worries. I hope you all must have experienced this, that eventually we are thinking too much negative, that this might happen, that might happen, and so on. So the stress that I was getting from these situations were more from the situations which are not even there in reality. So what I realized is I need to cut down on the excessive thinking, but I didn't know how to. And as I said, I tried to educate myself on this. And one way I figured out from different literature related to this is that we need to practice slow thinking. So what do I mean by that? So I've read one beautiful line recently which says that think before you think. So it means that we need to be very alert while we are thinking, and we need to pay attention very closely to each and every thought that comes to our mind. Of course, it is very difficult because how can we observe ourselves while we are thinking? So it's like observing a third person. It is indeed difficult, and I tried few ways to practice this rigorously, and I think there is little bit improvement in the way I'm able to now control excessive thinking than it used to be earlier. And of course, because of that, it has helped reduce my stress. The next thing that gives me stress is lot of unplanned time. So we all agree that discipline is very important in life, but when we have lot of time, we tend to underestimate the importance of discipline. So what happens usually is because we have a lot of time, we just procrastinate things. And then simple normal tasks become emergency eventually. And that is an unnecessary stress, right? So this used to be the case with me for many years when I used to have a lot of time and I didn't follow any disciplined routine. So since last few years, I have been making this a note to myself that I need to make a to-do list every day and just stick to it during the day. I need to follow a fixed daily routine rigorously with a strong belief that it will work. One benefit of this is that it also reduces excessive thinking. It also helps me reduce excessive thinking. And I have observed that once I am following it rigorously with a strong belief, eventually I get used to it and it becomes a habit. The next thing that gives me stress is if I work at a stretch without taking any breaks. So I have read one article which says that our brain needs a free time frequently. So what do we do with this free time? Because again, if we don't plan out things properly, then we might do some unnecessary thinking or we might just waste time. So what should we do? So what helps me to give my to spend my breaks is basically to talk to the people who are not working in the same field as I work in. So they could be my school friends, for example, who are pursuing some different career paths or doing some activities which are not at all related with my core area of work. And if I do this on a regular basis, I observe that it freshens up my brain and it makes my brain more active and more alert. So that also helps me to observe myself in a better way. And of course, you can also pursue a hobby. So these are some of the things that work in my case, and each of us individual is a different one, and our causes of having stress and our stress busters are different. But I just want to emphasize one point here that in the midst of this pandemic or any uncertainties that are going around us currently, I think we all need to be observant of our stress levels continuously and not ignorant about it. We should know what causes us stress. We should know what are our stress busters. And we should always and consistently make deliberate attempts to reduce the stress, if not eliminate it. So with this, I conclude my talk and I thank BGB organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Girija. And next we have the video of Aparna MS, a BTech third year student from GEC Calicut.
Share with audio.
Good evening, everyone. I am Aparna MS, pursuing third year BTech in Department of Electronics and Communication from Government Engineering College, Kolkata. The challenges and opportunities for a balance between academic and professional activities are an area of contemporary importance. To begin with, let me give a brief introduction to professional activities. An activity in which a person utilizes their knowledge, skills, or other abilities in the service of another can be termed as professional activities. It includes conferences, workshops, webinars, projects, project presentations, etc. For engineering students and professionals, professional societies like IEEE, ISTB, Systems Engineering Society are very helpful for conducting professional activities. Now let's look into the need of professional activities. There are many, but to point out some of them are: it expands the knowledge gained by students, it improves skills like communication skills, then it changes the outlook on society and helps in thinking out of the box. Now, to implement anything, there will be challenges that are faced in it. So let us look into the challenges that are faced to get a balance between academic and professional activities. There are many, but some of them to point out are mentioned here, like lack of awareness. It includes lack of awareness not only for students but also for faculties and other people about the activities that are conducted. Then, lack of practice based learning opportunities. This practice based learning opportunities means that we are just learning something that from theory, from the textbooks, and we are not looking into the practical application of what we learn. And then narrow professional network. Narrow professional network means that if our professional network is that is narrow, we won't get to know what is happening in rest of the world much faster. That is, if we have a wider professional network, we would be in contact with people from outside the country or outside the college or university, and this will aid in getting to know technological advancements or new ventures faster. And then the next one is poor motivation. Now, let us look into some initiatives and opportunities that will help in mitigating the challenges that I have discussed. Some of them are proper and timely motivation. That is, proper and timely motivation about the professional activities, professional societies, and encouragement in participating in these activities are necessary to get students and professionals into these activities. The next is involvement in camps conducted by professional societies. Professional societies like IEEE and sub-society in them called SITE conduct humanitarian activities, and to implement these humanitarian activities, they conduct camps in which practical problems faced by people are surveyed, observed, discussed, and then solutions to mitigate them are found. So these camps not only help in changing the outlook of us on society or finding about practical problems, but it also helps a great way in expanding our professional network. The next opportunity is that it increasing technical competitions. That is, simple competitions like coding competitions or technical quizzes or any other thing that relates to the technology can be considered as a professional activity. And conducting such competitions will improve the participation from the student side, and they'll get to know more technological advancements easier. The next one is encouragement for involvement in humanitarian activities. Humanitarian activities is an area that is developing at a faster rate, and it is of great importance since practical problems faced by people and finding solution to them as engineers are that is the need of the hour. And to help in them, humanitarian activities are the best way to find humanitarian projects and finding solutions. And one more thing is the conduct of hands-on sessions. Hands-on sessions in areas like 3D printing, then robotics, robotic developments, or even simple things like paper manufacturing, recycling can be considered as a professional activity. And hands-on sessions where students themselves do these activities with their own hands, with tools and equipment, will help them in learning these things better and in gaining an expertise in this area. And now these are the references that I have taken. So one more thing, professional activity, that is finding a balance between academics and professional activities, is very important in this era of time, and proper methods and solutions to ensure that this activities is conducted smoothly and the number of activities is increased year by year is necessary for every institution and every student as in person. So thank you, one and all. I thank IEEE Malabar Subsection and NIT Calicut for giving me an opportunity to participate in Beyond Glass Barriers 21. Thank you very much.
And now, next we have the video of Ms. Aikifa Rahman from Qatar.
Hello everyone. Today I'm recording my presentation on my paper as life as a working mom. I started off my paper describing how I did not know what this meant, what life as a working mom meant, until I actually got to it. In my family, I didn't find anyone talking much about it. Even if there was someone, they were always working part time, or maybe they gave up on their profession after they had children and so on. So my paper starts about my ignorance of what it meant to be a working mom. And one of the big problems I faced was how short maternity leaves were. In my experience with my first child 11 months back, I had only 30 days of maternity leave. And I realized how short this was for your body to heal, for your mind to heal. I remember the day I went back to work, not really knowing where I fit in again, even though it had just been a gap of 30 days. Not really having healed myself physically, not being able to take it all in. I also remember the separation anxiety, the immense anxiety I felt the day before of having to leave my child for so many hours. And I remember the difficulties of continuing breastfeeding while being away from work, the struggle it involved, the planning it involved, the planning of pumping schedules it involved, and all the other struggles that went with continuing breastfeeding while you're away from your child. And I also then continue to talk about what mental struggles I later faced, even after we got through the physical struggles. I talk about how I felt there was a lack of time for me to bond with my child during the days I was at work, and how really having the evening alone with your child never felt enough. And I remember how very less awake time I got with my child, and all the sadness of missing his milestones and missing his first times, first crawl and first walk and first smile. I remember these things, and I was also finding it very difficult when he was attached to other caregivers much more than me, because he naturally spent more time with them. This is a continued struggle, and I always wondered why no one talked about it. Was it just me, or did I not know how to balance it out, or was it just that nobody else talked about it? And I still wonder where we go from here. I wonder if all moms feel the same. I wonder if there is some way out. I wonder if there is more discussion in this field. I also wonder if life would have been different had I given up my profession and not gone back to work, or maybe gone back, but after a break. And I still wonder if my second child experience would also be like this. Thank you for the opportunity to present my paper. Have a good day.
And at last, we have the video of Aprajita Sachdev, MTech, NIT Calicut.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aprajita Sachdev, and I am a MTech second year student in computer science and information security. And thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk about the topic I can relate the most, that is body shaming. So, coming to this topic, I was a very chubby kid from my childhood. So initially, from very initial, I used to got comments which are very negative, and it was regarding my body, my looks. So in childhood, I don't know about that. At that time, I was completely unaware about this body shaming. So I didn't think about these comments very much, so I used to ignore them, or sometimes I used to fight. So but these comments affecting me from very initial. So the effect of these comments on me was very bad, that when I came to my class 10th, 11th, 12th, I became very shy student. and very underconfident. Like I didn't participate in any of the activities, though I was very good at studies. But when it comes to the cultural events or curricular events, I was the dumbest child in the school. So because of all these things, like I was very underconfident. Like, what if I participate in this sports activity? What if I fall? What if this happened or that happened? Some random scenarios happened in my mind. So at that time I was unaware about like how to tackle with this situation. So I used to ignore it, or sometimes I used to cry. Like, yeah, I used to cry. So I cleared my school. Then I came to the Bachelor of Technology course in a university. So at that time also same thing happened. Like I used to get very negative comments about me. People used to mock at me because of my looks, because of my weight. I know that my weight is my biggest insecurity, but then also like people used to comment on my weight. Like sometimes I know I'm not looking good in this thing, or I gained so much weight, I have to lose it, otherwise no one will talk to me, or this will create some problem in my future. So very bad comments I used to get at that time from my family, not family, I can say relatives, from my classmates, batchmates. So I was very sad at that time. So in the 4 years, initially in 2 years, I was like, I used to ignore that. I know that hurts me very badly, but still I didn't have any choice at that time, so I used to ignore it. But then when I gradually came to third year, the placement year, so I focused on myself also, and I realized that if I am not confident in myself, then I cannot tackle the situation well. Like I used to take the comments on myself and I used to overthink about it. Like, yeah, this is he's saying right or she's saying right. I have to do something. I'm not in a good position, or I'm not in a good state of my body. So I overthink, and I felt depressed sometimes because of my weight. Somehow I started some activities so that I can distract myself from all these things. So except my studies, I started some activities, some good activities like yoga or drawing, music, singing. So from all these activities, I felt like I got distracted from all this. But somehow that comments thing is like it's like a regular thing in my life. So now also I used to get the comments, but the thing is like I think I am used to it. Like now it does not have any effect on me. But the good thing happened in me, like now I am good what I am. I accepted myself with my flaws. So I don't care about anyone. Like if they are saying something about me, let it be. So I cannot do anything regarding this body shaming, but I want to tell you, like if you're facing this situation, try to talk to your friends, your family, because I know the feeling is like very bad, and if you are not able to share it with anyone, you will feel suffocating in yourself. So better to share your feelings and just love yourself, because you are the one who will stay with you throughout your life. So instead of expecting from others, just be yourself. That self-love, that is very important, that is the main key, and make yourself happy. And like for fitness, I'll say like, yeah, start some basic exercise, but according to your mood, according to your like some people like exercises, some people like dancing, so whatever you like, but don't do this thing like, okay, he's saying or she's saying this thing, now I will do. So this will not motivate you for starting your fitness journey. You have to think about it and then decide, like you are taking the step, but what is the motivation behind this step, so that you can reach your goal. So I think yeah, that's it. I'll wrap up this recording. So Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak about it, and thank you.
Thank you, participants. Now, let me invite Dr. Madhukumar ST, Professor in Computer Science and Engineering Department, NIT Calicut, who was also the former chair of IEEE Malabar Subsection, to declare the winners of this paper presentation contest. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening all. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
One second. Yeah. So, as you know, Beyond Glass Barriers is actually the national workshop, which is actually the flagship program of IEEE Malabar Subsection. So, this is the third edition of BGB. And this time we conducted a paper contest as part of this workshop. So we have invited papers on two different tracks, one on professionals, women professionals, and there was a student track also. So the topic was challenges faced and the personal initiatives taken by women to overcome the challenges. So we got many entries and 3 reviews were done for each paper, and the final decisions were taken based on the criteria given below. So the first criteria was problem addressed in the paper and creativity found in the solution, and the writing style followed by the authors, and the takeaways or the lessons for others. So these were the 3 different points on which the judges have evaluated, and we have seen the presentations. The shortlisted papers were just presented, and my job is to is on professional tornadoes in an empowered women's journey. So hearty congratulations to Reshmi Sriram. Okay, let us move on to the first prize winner. So the first prize goes to Rahman from Qatar. Her paper is titled as Life as a Working Woman. So hearty congratulations, Aikifa. Now let us move on to the student track. So there were many entries in the student track. The third prize goes to Aparajita Sachde, MTech student of NIT Calicut. Just now we have listened to her paper on body shaming. Congratulations, Aparajita. Now the second prize goes to Aparna MS, third year BTech student from GEC Calicut. Her paper was on academic versus professional activities, challenges and opportunities. Hearty congratulations to Aparna. Now the first prize in the student track goes to Girija Limaye, PhD student from IIT Madras, who presented the paper first today. So her paper is on stress deserves a goodbye. So these are the results that we are announcing. I think IEEE MSS will give you the cash awards. So the organizers will announce regarding how they will be giving you or how they will be sending the awards to you. Thank you. Wishing you all the very best. Thank you. Over to you, Pooja.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, let me invite you all to an exciting panel discussion. The topic is challenges and survival techniques during COVID and what beyond COVID. So now let me invite the esteemed panel members one by one. I also request you to deliver your opening remarks after the invitation. Firstly, I welcome. She did her PhD in IISc Bangalore, postdoctoral researcher at the Institute for Algebra at the Johannes Kepler University in Linz, Austria. And she has a work experience of 2 years in Microsoft as program manager. Ma'am, please deliver your opening remarks.
Right. So I guess I have 10 minutes or so. I thought I will. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I don't know how this opening remark should have been styled as, but I thought I'll have some 4 or 5 slides, sort of like an open remarks, 10 minutes. Is that okay?
You can take
yes.
10 to 12 minutes, Maria.
Okay, sure. Right. So I will just a second. I will do this. Okay. Let me see if I can. Right. Sure. So yeah. Is this the? So I'm guessing my screen is visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you. So, right, I kind of represent the academia in this panel discussion, I suppose, but in no ways am I representative of any of it because I'm just starting off in the academia. I would, a lot of disclaimers because I have not really done a scientific way of researching any of these problems that women face in academia. I mean, most serious problems like, say, harassment at the workplace or things. I'm not even professionally qualified to discuss a lot of these things. So I'm kind of keeping it very personal, like what I've personally gone through. And though the title looks very lofty in sense of challenges and opportunities, and clearly I've not made a lot of these challenges into opportunities. I have not figured it out myself. Just some things that I've seen in my life, and I'm just giving you some solutions on how to navigate through this very difficult, but at the same time, very rewarding career option, I would say. So a brief bio of what I've done, just again, that kind of is reflective of the challenges that I've gone through. So I've done my education in a small school. It's a staff school in Calicut, Spring Valley. And then I did my BTech in NIT Calicut. And then I did my master's and PhD at IISc Bangalore. After my BTech, I did work for a few years at Microsoft at the Hyderabad office. After my PhD, I worked about 14 months as a postdoc at Linz. I broadly work in theoretical computer science. More specifically, I look at computational algebra. And these days, because students are not so interested in pure math, I also look at crypto or stick to the algebraic side. At the CSE department at IIT Hyderabad. What my dream future plan would probably be to have continuous sequence of problems to work on, ideally with pure math flavor to it and some amount of applied crypto. In terms of what has been major, stones in life, well, I would put it in this kind of a slide here. It's again the biography, but more in terms of the challenges that I've gone through, and I guess the bars are kind of a measure of how challenging it was. So getting into NIT Calicut was probably one of the most challenging periods of my life because I came from a very small town. I didn't really know what the competition was. The exam was very difficult, but even harder was the whole preparation for this examination. The whole 11th and 12th, I would call it a fiasco, because of the kind of rigor that you're put into. I mean, kind of difficulties that you're put into in terms of you're already a teenager, going through a lot of different changes in your priorities, in terms of what you look at, what is important. You are very confused yourself, and then you have this whole coaching classes and things like that, making it even harder. So I would say that was very challenging. And NITC was it was a breeze. It was very nice. I had an exposure to a lot of different kinds of subject. So I wouldn't call that challenging or anything. And then there was always this working in a corporate world, and how would people accept you there, and whether, first of all, even if you were hired just because you were a woman. I remember those kind of comments coming up. So but that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Doing a PhD is probably as hard as, I don't think there was any woman specific issues out there, but yes, you have to do it really fast, because you have this bag in your back of a mind that you have a biological clock that you have to adhere to in terms of starting a family or so. So you're doing everything, but at a faster pace, I would say. But as such, PhD wasn't a process, an unlearning, relearning process where you had to learn a different style of thinking and finding a solution. Again, finding a postdoc was again a different sort of game where you had to learn how to sell yourself in some sort of sense, and what you have done, presenting ideas to people who are not necessarily working in your area. And at the same time, they have funding, so you need to really convince them to be able to work. And there's also this two-body problem if you have already gotten married. And there's also this task about finding an academic job, which in India also has an age limit. So you need to find something before 35, and a lot of these things that put a clock on you. So those make it challenging. And then post-maternity, post-pandemic, the whole process of doing research, which looked rather straightforward before all of this, now has become very, very complicated. And it brings with it a lot of challenges in itself, like things that I never expected. The whole fact that I have to be dependent on other people for my time, and realizing that, I may not be able to do that well as a mother, as an academician. All of that has been a learning process, and it's been as challenging as, say, clearing the entrance exam for NITC. So this is the kind of, like, again, how I would express my journey so far in terms of how challenging it was. So, right, to look at it more broadly in the terms of academia, I would say for women, the challenge is first even learning STEM subjects. You see a lot of women dropping out of STEM subjects because there is, in some sense, a gender stereotyping for science subjects. A lot of people assume that girls are not so good in math. You find very few mathematicians who are women who have done well. There's also the self-doubt that women go through, a lot of imposter syndrome, like, are we good enough, or are we just here because we are a woman? So there's a lot of that barrier that girls have to go through to get into STEM. And I don't have any clear-cut solutions, but I do believe guidance and support is a big thing for women to do STEM, research in STEM. That is, I mean, you're having a family. I mean, whatever people tell you, ultimately, when you go back to your family, and if they believe that you can do it, they don't even think there is a question of you can't do it, then it's a big deal. And then valuing yourself, which might be a little hard for a young girl starting out, but realizing that when you get something wrong, it doesn't mean you are a failure. You just need to learn how to, change your way of doing things. And at the same time, acknowledging that, there are some things that you're good at. And also the exposure to understand that, STEM is not, there's not just one way of doing things to succeed in STEM. Different backgrounds can bring in interesting things to the STEM field is something that even teachers should be aware of. I remember when I was in 11th and 12th, there would be people who tell you, if you get this question right, you would get into a good institution. And that kind of put a lot of pressure on you, because if you don't get that question right, you have this feeling that, no, I won't clear any of these things. And that's not how it is. I mean, there are different ways of getting to the same thing. So that kind of an exposure would have also really helped. But in general, valuing yourself, how hard that might be, is one way to get that confidence to do research or to go ahead and study STEM subjects. There's also the fact that if you have a community within your institution to help out in terms of peers, in terms of mentors, that would also go a big deal, especially if they're women mentors or women peers. You can ask your dumb questions. You can also see how they're thinking. That kind of also helps you. Things that I thought before was not really a woman thing. And that kind of gave me connection is unstable. Is the internet that bad, or?
Now it's better. You can hear you well.
Oh, okay. It was really bad, is it, in between? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Broke just
Okay.
before that. Not so bad.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm also on vacation, so I'm I'm at home, so it makes it right. Another thing I see is so it happens to me as often is that the fear just makes us blank out and not jump right in. I mean, you fear coding, you fear doing math, and you never really end up doing it. And I think that's kind of a little more with women, I would say, because we just find it easier to back out. And sometimes you just need to get your hands dirty. You just need to dwell right in. It's easy to say it, but much, much harder to actually do it. Also, we have this habit of asking questions, which is a good thing. But more often than not, we don't really think of why, why didn't I get this answer and why did somebody else get it? Some amount of humiliation actually helps us learn things and really figure out how those people actually got to that answer, something that, we would probably have to change our way of thinking. So more often than not, we just ask the questions, we get the answer and we move on. We never really think why we couldn't have got the answers ourselves in the first place. So we're not that so probably as competitiveness in some sense, but yeah, we kind of low behind in that. Yeah, I'm so sorry about this. Okay. Right. And what about research in academia? It comes with its own set of problems, like finding a problem of your own, finding a solution. You're basically doing research on your own with no guidance whatsoever. And there is always a self-doubt of whether you're good enough. And there's also this whole thing about finding and navigating through the job process, which sometimes is much easier. Yes, that's something I found it very hard, because one woman in your lab, sometimes you miss out on a lot of conversations. So, and there's also this whole thing about starting a family, getting a job in the same place as your spouse. It becomes hard. How does one navigate through that? There are no solutions. And again, for me, I would just say you have to really protect your research time like it's a meeting time. COVID, because you end up doing more childcare or housework, because research is something you can keep postponing because there's no real clear end to it. And I believe that you need to really know how to organize your time and make sure that research time is also as important as, say, a meeting time. I mean, people get through it different ways. I would say you're young, you could even keep unearthly hours if you have to manage household chores, family, and childcare. If you have to wake up at 4, you have to do that, because that's the only way I found out that I could get some work done. I believe that journaling, even though it looks like a silly thing, it helps, really helps, because you lose track of everything that you wanted to do with the baby around. And sometimes just keeping a list of problems, your progress, keeping short summaries of papers that you've read, conversations that you've had, the very act of writing it down really helps make progress and keeps you focused on when you get back to work, so that you can kind of isolate yourself from, you can kind of, silo your work time and your childcare time or for household chore time. I've also learned that, since we have very little time, more often than not, how we present results to our collaborators, how we present results to our audience matters. The quicker, the faster we learn to do it, the more faster our research progresses. Networking really, really helps. Collaboration really, really helps, especially if you're taking a break or if you're taking a small break with the baby around. It really helps to have a collaborator who's also working on the problem, or at least you prepare for the meeting because you know you can't keep your collaborator waiting. It does help to attend conferences, whatever people say. I remember my guide was like, no, you need to do only pure math, sit isolated in a room, you do it. No, you really need to socialize, especially women, because we don't make friends. I mean, because it is a community with very few women, we really need to forge relationships wherever we are, learn to, even write grants together, whether they're successful or not, you forge a relationship in that way. Post-maternity is a scary moment because however exciting it is, you have all this fear of losing your momentum. Luckily, as an academia, you have great leave policies and flexible hours. That's a big deal, I would say, because in the corporate world, even though they have awesome HR policies, they have very few women there as well, especially in senior levels. And I would say that's because we don't really have flexible hours so much. And I have not really figured out how to make this post-maternity period most productive. I would say do things like, listening to video lectures while or doing something light that keeps you updated with what's happening in your field, but at the same time, that doesn't require full concentration. Editing papers, writing a grant proposal, I would say is a good idea because you don't really have much to lose, but you get to keep your ideas together. You do some amount of literature survey and it really helps. And get all kinds of support that you can get. Be shameless to ask your nannies, your parents, or whatever. And it's kind of temporary. Keep your sanity intact. Having a lot of people who you are comfortable discussing your problems with, whether it's technical or personal, really helps. And making your spouse and family understand that your research is a very flexible thing, but it's also never ending. You really don't go on a vacation because you're always having some problem or sequence. I mean, nobody really understands that sometimes. So it helps to really explain those things to people that, research is not like a class or a meeting. You don't go for it. It's always there. People ask me, what is your working time? People ask me, oh, you have a meeting now, you have a class now. But that's not how it works. How do you explain it to someone like that? That it's research. We have a problem, we think about it. How do you really explain it to people? So you need a family and spouse that's understanding of this. And I found that very, very important and sometimes very hard. So what's key to having women in academia? I would say workplaces that welcome women. And I wish the academia had such good HR policies that corporates have in terms of, let's say, daycare and all of that. I rely on my husband's office daycare, for example, right now. Because they are much better. So I would really believe that, I've had people tell me, academic people telling me, won't your parents come and look after your child? So those kind of ad hoc help is not what the academia should rely on. It should rely on more professional help, like proper daycares. And probably even have an age relaxation for women when it comes to applying for jobs. But more importantly than not, having a very professional working environment is a big deal. And I'm very, very happy to see that at my department in IITH, and it helps me to come out with because of the respect that they give me. I'm not saying it should be extra for women or something, but I'm just saying it shouldn't be condescending or in any sense snide remarks or just not taking you seriously itself is enough to make you feel like you don't want to go to work. So as I was saying, support is very important from your spouse, from your family. You can hire a family and attitudinal changes. That's very important, especially for the girls who often want to leave STEM subjects because they believe they're not good enough. They need a lot more often than not, people will be like, yeah, you women take care of it. And I wish that would change. Yes, and I quickly summarize, but whatever happens, let's not wait for changes to happen from outside. Let's try to do best, whatever we can right now. That's the only way out as far as I can see. And it's okay sometimes to just move in another direction altogether because each experience in itself is an end in itself and it's a learning experience in itself. So be prepared for moving to a completely different direction sometimes. And sometimes that also helps improve, so you get more stimulated to work in a different environment altogether. So I kind of will stop right now. So again, I think at the panel discussion with more questions, I'll probably know how to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I welcome Mrs. Asha Chako George. She's a business relationship manager for utilities at TCS. She earned her master's degree in business administration from Missouri State University, US, and her bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering from University of Kerala, Trivandrum. In addition, she has multiple professional certificates, including Six Sigma Black Belt, Certified Information System Security Professional, Project Management Professional, the Open Group Architecture Framework, Scaled Agile Framework. So she's currently residing in California, USA, and from USA she has joined us here. I request ma'am to please deliver your opening remarks.
Thank you very much. So good evening to all of you. It's rather a very early good morning for me because I woke up at 4 o'clock and logged in. It was when your other session was going on. It's 4:30 a.m. in the morning for me, but very happy to be here. To start with, I want to thank all the organizers of IEEE who has put this great event together. So thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me. And it was very heartening to listen to that, very motivating speech that we just heard. So if I ever do a PhD, now I know what to do. Thank you so much. Let me go to the couple of slides that I have for my opening remarks. So I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see it. I hope my presentation is visible. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so my perspective before I start, I was asked to present the industry perspective on the pandemic and how the industry survived. So everything that I would be saying in the next few minutes and even in the panel discussion would be from my vantage point of the industry, specifically the IT industry where I come from. I work with TCS and I've been in the IT industry for the last 23 years, ever since I finished my engineering from CET in 98. So the pandemic presented us with a complete reset, right? There was not a single family, not a single person in the entire face of the world, from rich to poor or whatever economic strata, who did not feel the impact of the pandemic. Working from home, especially for us in the IT field, was more of a privilege that was given to certain people only for a certain period of time. It became a norm. When offices shut down around the world and people were asked to work from home, what we thought would be a few weeks extended into a year and 2 years and still counting, right? Yeah, and another thing was the digitization of services. I don't know how to move my this mouse so that the screen so that you can see the. Are you seeing my presentation in its entirety? Is that all right?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
you.
then it must be the way I am viewing it. Okay, so coming back to the digitization, before you step out to buy vegetables or provisions, you would check out online if there was a way to order it online and it would come delivered to your home. Before calling up, going to a doctor, you would look whether your doctor offers you video services. In fact, telehealth was an option, was present in the United States, I think, for a long number of years. But I read recently that in the last, after the pandemic, the popularity of telehealth has actually increased 10 times in just 1 year. Can you imagine? And of course, industry across the spectrum went for AI-enabled solutions, Internet of Things, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on. Okay, the unprecedented challenges, excuse me, that we faced. One, of course, when we talk about resilience, that's a great story. So if you remember the beginning of 2020 and the first quarter, there was a big dip in the stock market across the world, even in the United States. And there was a big fear of, is this going to be the next recession? But the fascinating thing is by the next quarter, most of these companies had rebounded, not just rebounded, but even to 2019 levels, to pre-pandemic levels. So there was that resilience that was seen in the industry across the world. In fact, they say big tech only got bigger. For the companies that are known as big tech, the Facebook, Microsoft, the Google, or rather Alphabet that owns Google, Apple, people started using their services more and actually grew more during the pandemic. Enabling work from home almost overnight was a big thing that IT companies achieved. In my own company, my employer, TCS, we have 500,000 employees across the world. And work from home was a huge thing, enabling, making sure that the infrastructure reached the associate's house, setting it up, with all the security and everything else that you would have working from an office, and done just like that in a week or two was a big accomplishment. And we did that for our customers. Wherever we were responsible to make sure that the customer's infrastructure was taken care of, we enabled thousands and thousands of their employees to work from home overnight, which is a huge success story. I think a lot of companies would have in their pocket today. Attrition. Oh, another sad thing is a paradox, right? On one side, I read a report from the World Bank, which said that an additional 88 million people across the world were pushed into extreme poverty during the pandemic. There were a lot of job losses. And at the same time, there was a lot of opportunities as well. there was this attrition. Attrition is at an all-time high. There are so many jobs out there, high-skilled jobs with no people to fill them. So there is a lot of resignations, and this movement is actually called the Great Resignation that's going on even today. Work without boundaries, when we opened up, the home became the workplace. For example, instead of, driving 50 miles to work every morning, I just come out of my bedroom and step into my next room, which is my home office where I am here today. So, there's no commute. So what happened, there was a blur between work and personal life. I'm available from early in the morning till late at night. I know I'm talking of me as an example. So it was difficult putting those boundaries between your personal life and your work life. Mental health issues. People had a lot of problems. We humans are social animals, and we are created to interact with people, right? And work together. And when that interaction was not there, especially for people who didn't have families, who were staying alone, there was anxiety, there was a whole lot of problems, and organizations realized that. So never beyond before seen focus on mental health issues. So in my own organization, I recall seeing at least, one seminar or one meeting or something or the other on mental health. You would have doctors come in and speak. You would have so many sessions on how to manage stress and so on. So there was an identification, a realization of those issues and a way of tackling them. So I don't want to stop with a bleak outlook on the future. I want to talk of, leave it on a good note, saying that this too will pass, right? As we look into the future, I was reading several papers, which was like after the pandemic, what? TCS has done a survey with 300 executives across the world, McKinsey has done a survey with 800 business executives across the world. So one thing that's coming up is there is going to be a decrease in IT budgets next year. And so at the same time, there's going to be an increased digitization. There's going to be an increased cloud movement. One of the surveys, they found that the companies that actually survived, were resilient during this period, were those that had significantly invested in AI, significantly invested in digitization. So there is a movement of more investments in AI, more investments in automation. Remote working is, the world has changed, and it's never going to be the same ever again. The changes that the pandemic brought in are here to stay. Remote working, excuse me, is the norm. And of course, as the pandemic evolves, right, we don't know what next to come, what new variant is going to come. The response from organizations and from individuals also need to evolve. And we see that evolving, and will continue to evolve. At the same time, there is an end to it, right? There is light at the end of the tunnel, and this too will pass. With that, I hand back to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I welcome Mrs. Ashwati Dinil. She is a TEDx speaker, a psychologist, and a trainer, a life coach. She is the founder of Samatva, a personal restructuring hub in Calicut. She has been certified as a personal transformation coach and a youth empowerment coach by the International Federation of Coaches. She holds a master's in business administration, master's in psychology, master's in educational counseling, and a tutor's training in learning disability. Ma'am has been instrumental in transforming over 6,000 people through her training programs and personalized coaching in India and the Middle East. She's joining us from Calicut. Please deliver your opening remarks, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Hanan, for that lovely introduction. And thank you to all the organizers, especially Anu, for giving me this opportunity to speak here today. So I had a presentation, but I just don't want to use the presentation. I just decided that I don't want to use the presentation. When we are traveling in a road that's quite smooth and, it's all going well. And suddenly your car is sort of pushed into a very, very rough patch of road, lot of bumps, lot of stones, and you don't exactly know what to do, but you have to reach your destination. So you start going very slow, and you have a lot of blocks in the beginning, but then it starts getting smoother, and finally you reach your destination. I think this rocky road has been COVID for all of us. I mean, it's been very, very difficult because we have been going in a particular way. We've been living our lives in a particular way, and suddenly we have thrown off track and told that you're not supposed to go out, you're not supposed to meet people, your school has stopped, your job has stopped, you're supposed to do everything from home.
And it gets even more difficult for women because we know why. We realize that there is so much to be done at home that we probably, our maids were taking care of, and now there are no maids, which was my biggest shock for almost 6 months because my maid didn't come. So, but looking at the brighter side, so I'm going to share a very, very personal experience as to what COVID did for me. This, we are always in a rat race. We're running every day. We do our jobs every day. We get back home and it's like a well-oiled machine. So we do things. Sometimes if you ask, maybe like a year back or 2 years back, if you ask me why I was doing the things I was doing, I would probably have to think for 5 minutes and actually ask myself, why am I doing all this? So when COVID struck, that was the time when I actually got to sit at home because I travel a lot and I have 2 young kids. So that is the time when I actually got to sit at home. And I was, for the first time in a lot of years, I was actually thinking to myself, what are the good things that are happening? Why am I putting up with all this? Why am I doing this? Am I really doing this? Is this really what I want? It was a huge insight into my own life, and in the last, probably in the last year and a half, I have changed. I'm into coaching, Hanan introduced me, and I had been coaching a lot of adults and children, but it is definitely in this time of COVID when I was sitting at home that I definitely for sure realized that it is kids that I want to work with. It is children, only children that I want to work with. And, a lot of things like that. For one, I sat down one day and I decided I just wrote down a whole paper of probably all the things that were good in me and all the things definitely that needed to change. I don't think I've ever done it before. Though I always think, I need to change that habit. Maybe that's not for good. I need to do that, but I never get time to sit and sort of work on it. So this COVID phase has been, very, very instrumental in changing the direction of my life, probably the sail of my life, because I have been, it has also helped me set my priorities. So I have a daughter who has special needs. So this COVID has been a little more challenging for mothers like us because life has actually stopped for our children, and it can be quite detrimental for their, for their development when schools are closed. They don't get to meet their friends. They don't get to, do a lot of things that they are used to doing. So, and it gets very emotionally difficult for mothers also, because somewhere in between you feel very stranded. You're not very sure what it is going, how it's going to go. That the development is standing still for a while, but you cannot do anything about it. So it can get very emotionally, very disturbing also for mothers. So, there have been times where I have traveled for 2 weeks continuously and then come home. And when I was with my kids, like for the last so many, 1.5 years, though I must admit that all the time it has not been like, wow, I love being with my kids. I'm sure all the mothers agree, because the cleaning and the cooking can be a little stressful. So I'm not making it sound very rosy, but I have loved the fact that I've gotten time to spend with my family, which on another day most of us weren't doing. It's not anybody's, not very intentional, but we just get so driven away in the work that we do that, sometimes we don't realize. So I have been very, very grateful, like very grateful, because I have sat with my children, listened to them talk. Sometimes I realized I never did that, and I never want to trade it for anything else now. So, they're talking about their stories. They're talking about stuff. My son is making something. Sometimes, he's making something, or he's constructing something with his blocks, and I'm working and I say, hey, wow, it's very nice. And he's like, Amma, look at this. It's really nice. I love it. And that it stops there, because I'm just looking and I want to get back to my work. But when you don't have work, there is nothing to get back to. So, spending time with them, listening to them, it has been amazing. I have absolutely loved the fact that I got time to spend with my family. And I heard somebody talk about valuing your health, how you need to love yourself. And I absolutely can agree to what she said, because probably 3 years ago, for people who've seen me, I don't think too many people here have seen me. I was that person, because I was 94 kilos. And I exactly know what she was saying when she said that everywhere we went, people would have something to say, like some advice, which is the most inexpensive thing that people can give, so they give it very generously. So either some kind of advice, the fact that I might not live for long, the fact that I might not fit. Oh, why are you so fat? The moment somebody opens the door, what happened? Why are you so fat? How did you put on so much weight? I mean, if I knew the answer, I don't think I would have put on that weight, So I understand what she says, and I was really listening to her intently. I completely agree that when you do something, you do it for yourself. When, as women, I feel we have to fit into so many shoes. We have to be a mother, we have to be a daughter, maybe a friend, a wife, a sister, so many roles. And sometimes we are so busy or so immersed in making everybody happy around us that we fail to see whether we are actually happy. So we want to take care of that person, we want to take care of her, we want to do that, I have to do that, I have to run the errand. But what are you doing for yourself? What exactly are you doing for yourself? I lost a lot of women, like a lot of my friends who are very, very smart in college and extremely like pleasant and very good with communication. So now when I talk to them, they said, I'm just so dissatisfied in life. I've been taking care of everybody. I just want to do something with my life. And it's never too late. It's never too late. There is never an end that, I'm this old, so now I can't do anything. These are all shackles that are placed on us, and somehow we sort of take it in that, I'm this old, I've become this old, I'm not as successful. What do I do now? So I think because this is very much women centric, I'd only like to say that there are many shackles that women place on themselves, so many chains that we actually tie ourselves with, and it is not people from outside or the people around. So if you were to actually think a little bit and understand, I would say that you just like how the young girl who spoke before said that, do things for yourself, not to make others happy. Doesn't mean that you don't make anybody happy and say, my happiness is all that matters. It's not like that. But it's important that you give yourself some time, you give yourself some credit for what you're doing. I always felt very insufficient as a mother. I always felt like I'm not doing enough, I'm working a little too much. And sometimes, especially in our in the community for special needs children, we have these videos popping up every day of children doing many things, and I always think, man, my daughter is not doing as much. I don't think I've done enough. And that mom guilt which a lot of mothers go through, it used to really eat me. Like, I used to really feel whenever I'm outside training and I'm traveling somewhere, at the back of my mind, I'm like, have I failed as a mother? It really used to ring a bell. It used to really sort of make me go into an unnecessary chain of thoughts. So but now, like I said, sometimes we say a lot of things, it's very difficult to implement it ourselves. So now what I'm always thinking is, we are all doing our best as people, we are all doing our best. Okay, of course you can do better, but we are all so give yourself credit for all that you're doing. And especially as women, we are doing so many roles and we have to take care of so many roles. So always give yourself credit for what you're doing, because there is always scope for improvement. You can get better than what you were today, but give yourself credit, give yourself some time and do things for yourself, not always for others. Because when you are happy, you sort of it goes on to the people around you. And so my husband owns a bakery in Calicut. So during this COVID time, we did not have too many employees. So I used to go and sit with him there and help him. So one thing I predominantly realized is I would sit there, and when somebody came, my husband would say, so how's COVID? And they'd say, oh, COVID has our lives. And this would go on. And the moment they would go out from the bakery, my husband would also say, oh, COVID has really, I said, what? COVID has done something. So we are actually trying to, get over it. So, please don't let what people talk to you sort of put you down. So the only thing you can do is spread positivity, is to talk positive. There is 100 things to complain about. In life as such, there are 100 things to complain about. And this COVID has not been easy, because we have lost people who are near to us, dear to us. But there are also many reasons to smile, many reasons to smile. So if you can concentrate on a bit on the reasons why you should be grateful, that the very fact that we're alive, all sitting here and listening to, all of you all. So that itself is a big thing to be grateful. You're opening your eyes, you're breathing every day, you're seeing the, sunrise. So try to concentrate on the things that are good in life. There are many things to cry about, but you might as well look at the other door and think about the things that you're smiling about. And also, when people ask you, how are you? You might feel miserable. There are days when you just don't want to say anything. But when you say, my day, it's just so terrible, I hate my life, that's what you actually transfer to the next person. And you transfer that energy. So all that we can do is not only to have hope in ourselves, but also to give it to others, give the positivity, because it is free of cost. It is so easy to give, right? So my slide, actually my first slide had saying, are you a potato, a coffee beans or egg? That was the slide. I just decided I didn't want to do, but I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to end this with a story. So once there was a young girl who always complained about her life. I mean, she's completely miserable. So she went to her father and told her, I'm always having problems. Like one problem goes, the next one comes, and my life is so miserable. Like I hate it. So he said, he was a chef. So he said, well, don't you find any reason to be happy about? So she says, no, I just hate it, Dad. I'm so miserable. I have so many problems. So he says, okay, come into the kitchen with me. He puts 3 pots on the burner, like 3 pots, okay, 3 big pots. And into one he puts potato, into the other one he puts coffee beans, and to the next one he puts egg. So this young girl, she's so impatient, and she's like, what are you doing, Dad? I'm actually talking about my problems and you're cooking. So I said, just wait a minute. So after it boils, he takes all the 3 pans out and he puts the potato in one bowl, the egg in another bowl, and the coffee beans it's turned into coffee. So he pours it into a cup. So he goes and tells her, okay, now you touch it and tell me what it is. So she touches the potato and says, it's become very soft. Okay. Then she goes to the next bowl. She touches the egg and says, this has become very hard. And the coffee, she sips the coffee, and the unique taste of coffee puts a smile on her face. So the father tells her, all the 3 things have gone through the same adversity, which is the boiling water. So the potato went in tough, but came in very soft. Like it's all soft and mushy. The egg was very fragile, but it went into the boiling water and came out very soft and very hard and very thick. Now the coffee beans, it was put into boiling water and it made a unique thing of its own. It created something very pleasant for others. So when adversity strikes us, when things are not like we wanted to become, there are 3 ways we can react. We can either be a potato, sort of, completely loosen. We can be an egg, completely roughen out the whole thing that's happening outside. Or you can choose to be coffee beans, where you get in the adversity, try to make something new and spread cheer to the world. So what is it that you want to be? The panel discussion. Thank you. Over to the presenter.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Lastly, I welcome Ms. Aisha Nazia. She's a mechanical engineer by her UG education and a project and sports management professional and an operation expert. She is among the 30 candidates from as many countries chosen for the prestigious postgraduate sports executive program, FIFA Master, endorsed by FIFA. Joining us from UK is Ms. Aisha Nazia. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to people from across the globe. I have a quick presentation, but before that, I'm glad that the organizers of the event have put something up like this. It's interesting, and I enjoyed listening to the other speakers. Especially in times of COVID, focusing on women is something that people often forget when you have other problems to focus on. So, like sometimes feminism comes in or, empowerment of women comes in only when the other part of the world is fine. So if there's a climate crisis, everybody runs behind it. They forget about there's this major problem that's been lasting for years. And why this is a bit personally important for me as well is because ever since I came to UK and I started doing a course here, I was doing my history and humanities module specifically for sports. But then the funny part is when we were learning about women in sport, it's just not India, because I spent the first 26 years of my life in India. And now when I come here and listen about women in sport across the world, the problem is existing in every country. The only difference is some countries try their best to tackle it, but that necessarily doesn't mean that the problem is solved. So back in India, I used to think, oh my God, look at Scandinavian countries. They have amazing women-oriented policies. But now when I talk to Scandinavian people, they tell me that, okay, there are policies, you read about it in BBC, but is this really happening in our country? So, like the whole power of politics, how microaggression can work, racism, these were things that I was not attacked, at least when I was in India. So when I'm here now, I'm attacked in multiple ways. One, because I'm a woman, one, because I'm from India, which is a so-called developing yet underdeveloped kind of a situation country, or let's put it as third world country. And then the third one is being a Muslim, right? Like these were not problems that I had when I was back home for the past 26 years. Here, every day in my day-to-day life, when I see that these are three kind of arrow bones that they can keep throwing at me, it kind of reminds me that at least by the kind of education that I got back home, like most of you listening and most of you spoke, that is a kind of privilege that as a country that we had, which is access to education, if you really wanted to. So I will quickly take you through three different things that I want to focus on. One is about self-development, which a lot of people back home are not taught about. Like that's not by default ingrained in our system. Second is financial independence. I don't think anybody gets to know in depth about that word until you get out of your college or you get your first job, or even if when you start actually taking care of your expenses, because most people back home do not take care of their expenses, even if they get their first jobs, because the whole system works in a way that you're always dependent on your parents in one or the other form. But that's not how the world is evolving, right? So that's the second thing I want to talk about. And the last thing that I want to talk about is some personal learnings from my journey. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. If someone can confirm if they can see it.
Yes, Aisha, I can see you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm sure a lot of you guys would be using social media, and this is something that all influencers say, right? Which is be yourself, be the best you can, enjoy yourself, be happy, be positive. But I used to often ask, I mean, obviously I couldn't ask, but I used to ask to my screen where I was looking this, but how? Like, tell me how to be. Like, it's nice that you say be positive. It's nice that you say be yourself, but how do I understand what do I really want? These were the kind of questions that used to always pop up within me. Like the whole point of discovering and preparing oneself to attract opportunities. When I say opportunity, it doesn't really mean work opportunities, any kind of opportunity in life, opportunity to be happy, opportunity to enjoy something, opportunity to eat good food. Like, so, it can be as simple as searching on Google the best and affordable restaurant next to you to finding your dream job. But the whole problem was the system always had a gap on how to do it. There were people who did it, who tell you that it's possible, how they did it. And then there is a setup which helps you do it. But then not necessarily that my journey is something that you can follow. So I figured out that there is a process that in spite of me listening to 100 people and their struggles and their journeys, I can never do like a Xerox copy of it, right? I have to understand what my situations are, what my privileges are, what my family conditions are, what my financial situation is. My whole setup as a background will be so different from the other people that I listen to or the other people that I read about in books. Now, what I can do is I can look at my situation and map things according to their learnings from their journey. But most often, this is not how it is looked at. But fortunately, one, because my mom reads a lot, I happened to come across this book quite early in life. When I say quite early, maybe I find it quite early when compared to my peers. But, this is a book that I found in my house because my mom reads a lot, not because I read. But then the whole topic was very exciting to me. I didn't read the book, frankly speaking. But then this is a concept that I took out of that book, which is called Ikitai, right? And this whole chart, I discovered this early, right after my school days. And when I saw this chart, the funny thing was I was trying to answer the different circles of this chart to myself. I was like, what do I love? What is my passion? What am I good at? I didn't have answers to many of it, though, like my school considered me as somebody who can go do engineering. My parents thought I'm good at math. My sports instructor thought I can, become a chess champion someday. Like people had hundreds of opinions of what I could be. But when I personally tried drawing this in a journal diary that I had back then, trying to write things in each of the columns, I did not have answers. Now, is it somebody's problem? Not really. It was clearly my problem, but I do not want to blame the system on it, but I want to blame myself for not getting an avenue to do this before. Maybe because I didn't get access to books like this, or maybe because I was ignorant enough to read it. But what happened is, back then when I did this chart for myself, I couldn't fill few of the columns, which I was fine with. Like my mom told me, it's fine. Like you haven't, like you are just what, like you are 16 or 18. There's still a lot of time for you to go forward to figure out the different things. And the good part is she even told me that, listen, I might be 48 today, but I still don't know many of those things. Or there's a very blurred boundary between this and that, which I couldn't figure out all this while. So when my mother was ready to accept that flaw, right? But the beauty of it is being able to accept it and understand it. I then started making this chart as a part of my life. Every year before the new year, like everybody takes a new year resolution. What I started doing is every year before it's a new year, I will sit and redraw this chart for myself from what it was the year before. I will see what are the things that I want to change. I will see, is what kind of engineering what I want to do. Like once I finish my engineering, I thought, is it that I really want to do? Because now I realize that after studying 4 years of engineering, there are certain things that I'm interested in and certain things I'm not interested in. So for me, this chart has been like, like my personal guidebook to what I wanted to keep doing in life. And I do it till date. And everybody I have suggested did this once have felt some difference in what they think about themselves. Now, I cannot vouch for the fact that this will change your life. No. It clearly depends on how much effort you put into it, right? This is just a tool that somebody created to understand a reason for your being or being you. But the whole thing is, doing it actually makes you either feel regretful that you do not know half of the things that you want to put in there, or it can be very overwhelming in either ways, right? So that whole journey for me has been amazing. And this is one thing that I tell everybody that I speak to, that sometime in life, you needn't do it today, you needn't do it tomorrow, you needn't do it, say, until for the next 20 years. But sometime in your life, if ever you feel like you need to discover yourself a little better, just talking to yourself, then please try drawing an Ikigai chart for yourself. That will really help you understand where are you. And this clearly doesn't depend on your parents, your teachers, the people that you listen to, the books that you read. This is clearly a conversation between you and the chart which you are drawing, right? Now, as I kept journaling or as I kept talking to myself, there are a few things that I figured out is something that you cannot, like you cannot skip past. Like it's something that you cannot skip past. And one thing that I learned was that the world is continuously going to evolve, right? And we cannot do anything about it. Now, do we have a choice to do about it? Clearly, we live in a world with 7 billion people, right? At least now being in UK, I feel more privileged because every time people give me random figures, I'll be like, wait, listen, I come from a country with 1.6 billion people. So don't throw me stats from a country which is 5 million and say that that's better. But I took that as an advantage because living in my country with that much diversity from across in terms of geography, in terms of culture, in terms of language, I could really see how constantly the world around me was evolving. Though I spent most of my life, say, in states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Mumbai, Maharashtra, I felt the things around me clearly kept telling me that adapting to fast changes in the nature of work was very important. And when I say work, it can be studies, it can be the professional work that you do, it can be the kind of homely routines that you do. Things that my mom did when she was my age is not the things that I do in my age. Things what our parents did back then is not the kind of things that we do as a daily routine. Like, maybe they woke up in the morning, they did things one by one after they had a set routine of how things are meant to be done in the society. But now what is happening is we as the new generation, like I'm not Generation Z, but I was close to making it to Generation Z. So, I do take attributes from that generation. We do not have a preset societally approved routines, right? So I feel that is also ways of adapting to fast-paced changes. Like I don't mind waking up in the morning and, reading a book first and then going to brush. Like for my mom, that's impossible. Like she cannot do anything before brushing her teeth. So, from generation to generation and from societal changes, there's a lot of things that's happening. And what is also important in this process is, I'm sure when I heard few other speakers, I heard words like AI and work from home and, like how COVID has changed things in the world. What you will understand is encouraging technology savviness is important. Like today, you cannot put in your resume that Microsoft Excel. Like you should know Microsoft Excel if you're an engineer. Like please do not put it in your resume if you are applying for a job which will definitely use Microsoft Excel. Like that's like a basic requirement that you need to have. Do not write you have good English communication skills. Okay, if you're applying for a customer success job, then I understand it's like, if you have prior experience doing customer engagement or conversational things or communication marketing, it's important. But if you're applying for a managerial position or if you're applying for a group leader positions, it is by default important that you have good communication skills. So, nowadays, because of what technology has done to us, especially considering that we are talking about COVID, knowing to use a Zoom call or knowing to use work from home tools or being able to adapt and take care of your own to-do list, right? Because back home, we used to have meetings, we used to have briefings, somebody used to track our work. We could see physical changes in what we do, but now we are just in this room, wherever we set up our home office and, we have to evolve. So it is very important to be very technology savvy, because the reason why I'm stressing on this is when we speak about women in general, I often see resistance when it comes to be very technology savvy. Like people just choose by saying that, listen, I'm not interested. Like I do not have time for it. But the thing is, that is part of what your time is today. If your 24 hours without technology was how your life was, your 24 hours with technology is how your life should be now. And that is where this whole phrase of being comfortable with the chaos comes in, right? Like the whole world is in a mess. Trust me, like I came to this country wearing two mask, gloves. And when I landed in Heathrow Airport, the whole country was not wearing mask. And I was coming from a country where not wearing double mask was a problem. And for me, that was a shocker. But then people here, once they got vaccinated, the government just lifted the rule up by saying you don't need to wear mask. I was feeling very alienated in the airport. And then 3 months down the lane, when the new variant came up now, and when so many people started getting it, the government just issued another order saying that a FFP2 mask is compulsory. And from the very next hour of the announcement, everybody in this country is wearing that particular mask. So, for me, that was like, they were told to do something and they did it right away. But that's not how things used to work back in our country, right? You tell it 100 times, but you cannot get 1.6 billion people do it. So you already know that the world is in a bit of a mess. There's a lot of chaos happening around us. And also not in terms of just COVID or situations that we are in, but also in terms of the differences that we as humankind have, right? Like some of us have some kind of accesses. Some of us do not have. Some of us are fortunate enough to have privileges, while some of us do not. So, we are all in the middle of an unfair world, and getting comfortable with that and stop nagging about the problems is very important. And that's one thing that I specifically pressurized myself to learn, because if I keep saying that, oh, my parents are not going to leave me, they're very strict, or okay, like, my mother is a single mother and I have my own problems of facing the world that way, or I cannot do this dream course because, like we do not have the financial background to get a bank loan. Like if I start looking at all of those situations as my problems, then I will keep, being okay with it. I'll be like, okay, I didn't make it to UK or for this course because, me and my mom, we tried for a bank loan, it didn't work. Or, we tried applying somewhere else, it didn't work. So for me, I feel being comfortable with chaos and then going ahead out of your comfort zone is super important, because I can keep blaming everything around me. But what is the key point is nothing in this world is not things that you cannot do. Maybe you cannot do it at the expected level of what you think you want to, right? So there's always this difference between want and need that comes in between when you say comfortable. And this is another phrase that I keep using, and which is so close to the whole panel discussion, which is you have to always keep looking beyond constantly. And as a woman, because there's a whole difference in evolution between how the other gender and you have been constantly different, there's always needs to be a pushing forward. I know it is very unfortunate as to being, the society wanting you to do it, right? Like I need to go tell people that, listen, I'm good enough, give me that role. But maybe a male counterpart who's doing the same thing, who's in the same meritorious way, just gets it just because of the male privilege that exists in the world. But, like if I have to blame the system, change. But if I can look beyond and then constantly keep pushing for it, then, at least there's paving way. I cannot change everything that happens around women empowerment around me, but I can at least start changing things for me, which will eventually change things for the people associated to me, which will eventually go past. So it's more like resonating. And lastly, the one important thing is the continuous learning process, right? And the best example for this is every time you meet somebody in their, say, early 30s or late 30s or early 40s, and you ask them, okay, are you planning to learn driving or are you planning to learn swimming? And they'll be like, oh no, at this age, it is so difficult. And this is something that I've kept hearing. Trust me, I've kept hearing this from the time I was 5 years old, maybe till the time I was even yesterday, I heard one of my aunts saying, oh, it's so hard to learn driving now. But what I have realized is a lot of people do not understand the whole process of continual learning. Like it's a very scientific, well-defined process, a very neurological process, which science and the body has proved over time, which is that all human beings and animals have the ability to continuously acquire, fine-tune, transfer knowledge and skills throughout their lifespan. Like you are born with this, unless and until you were detected with some neurological issues. All of us, you, me, everybody around us have the skill by default. Now, if you are falling into that big bucket who were fortunate enough to be brought up to the world without any neurological or sensory skill issues, then by default, you have this I don't want to call it talent, but you kind of have the skill. But the problem is we stop using it. Like when I got into my professional work after my college, I literally didn't learn on a daily basis, because until school or until college, you actually go to a institution, you learn from 9 to 5, irrespective of how much you were concentrating in the class or not, you're actually consuming information. How much of it goes past you, how much of it goes in within the process of food for thought is a different thing, but at least you're consuming things, right? But when you get into a job, you are taught to do something, and then you constantly are doing that. The only places where you kind of go past that constant routine is maybe if you have to innovate a new strategy, or maybe if you have to rethink on a new model. But again, those are things of analytical problem solving scenarios, but it's not basically learning. What happens is when you do a problem solving, when you clear a problem solving setup, you learn from what you did, but still there's no continual learning, right? And I kind of challenged myself with that. Like people told me, as you keep growing, as you make it to your 30s, it's going to be very difficult for you to learn new languages. And I was somebody who was fascinated about learning languages because I love languages. I knew 8 Indian languages, but when I came here, I really understood that that doesn't make any difference when I'm in UK, because I do not know French, I do not know Spanish, I do not know Italian, which are like the big global languages, right? Like, so my whole task was, let me try learning these. I'm learning 4 languages now. And trust me, if I'm doing it on a daily basis, and if I'm pushing myself, my brain is not refraining from doing it. I've not been in college or school for the past 8 years. I know it's not long enough when compared to other people, but then even that 8 years used to make it very difficult for me to learn otherwise. But I've realized that the more and more I keep pushing myself, the more and more I know that I have to make myself better. It actually helps. And this is something that I often tell people, especially mothers, right? Like when they come back to work after their maternity leave, the problem is in those 9 months of you being away from work, there would have been changes in work, especially for women who work in STEM. There would have been technologies that's come up. There would have been new setups that would have come up. So when you are in that break, or how much ever long time that you take, make sure that you equip yourself to be ready to face what this 9 months have changed for you. And often a lot of new mothers come back saying that it is difficult because one, their setup, like the company that they work for or any kind of project that they're involved in, doesn't give this information, right? Now, it could be used as an excuse, but sometimes it is easy to get information these days because of the availability of the internet. And the reason why I keep pushing this forward is because when I was studying engineering back in Kerala, I was in TKM and my college was under the Kerala University. I was using textbooks that my teachers used. So like somebody who's teaching me, who's like 30 years elder to me, used the same physics textbook or same structural engineering textbook when he or she was studying as well. So that kind of hit me hard. And I was like, why is somebody not revising it? Like I was using a manual lathe, while when I got to work at Indian Oil, the whole company did not have a manual lathe. And they gave me a CNC operated lathe and they told me, start doing work. And I was like, I don't even know how to switch this on because I've not seen this. I've not studied this. For me, it was a moment of shame when my boss told me, what, you don't know this? Like, where were you? Like, didn't your college not have this? But the whole process was, who do I blame for this, right? And, and this is part of it. Like, you cannot change things by just wanting to change a textbook in a school, like at a glance. So I just realized that our current education system, everybody listening to me is studying the same books that I studied 7 years back. But when you pass out of your college and you graduate, the industry that you're going to is like super ahead of it. Like it's like 50 years ahead of it. That's like in the context of India. If you get out of India, it's like, say, 100 years ahead of it. So it is important that we move past that Charlie Chaplin phase and then we get ourselves prepared using internet, using all kind of books, resources around us to make sure that we are prepared for it. Now, why this is also important is because, like, say, in the generation before us, being the elephant on the left was enough. Like, you are amazing, right? But if you look at the things and if you look at how internet has given, like access to information to everybody, that's one good thing I like about internet. Everybody listening to this whole event today has a mobile connection, right? And that gives them the access to listening to us from across the world, which was not the case until few years when internet was not a thing, when Jio didn't give free data plans to people. So now that's a good thing that it did to societies like India, where everybody, irrespective of what financial situation you are in, or, like if you fall into a large bucket of somewhere above the poverty line, then you have access to internet. And because everybody has access to internet, everybody has access to information. And now what happens is you need to have the skill set to become the elephant in the right, because everybody is the elephant in the left. So, it's also in terms of money and in terms of education. So moving past to the second phase of what I wanted to speak was about financial independence. Now, financial independence is something that often women are not taught, right? And the reason why I think it is important, especially for women, is because we are the ones who keep hearing no. Like if I say I want to do this, my family can say no to me, the society can say no to me, I don't know, like everybody, my neighbor can say no to me, my teacher can say no to me, my college can say, oh no, we cannot leave a woman alone for an event. The Olympic committee of my country can say, okay, I cannot leave you for the Olympics because we do not have a male attendant to send with you to some country. Everybody can say no to me. So how can I say a no back to them? Is because if I know that telling no back to them, and if I'm not dependent on them directly, then I have an opportunity to say no, because even if I say no, they cannot change things in my life. They cannot change the food that I eat every day. They cannot change the house that I live in. They cannot change the places that I go. So for me, what I've realized is when I say this, I'm not saying that you have to go against your parents or you have to go against the society once you have money to take care of yourself, but that kind of gives you the wings to start thinking independently. Otherwise, what happens is when somebody really wants to do something and then you tell it to your parents, you try convincing them and they are like, no, we're not interested, we will not leave you. Then people just think, okay, I cannot do this because if I do this, my parents are going to throw me out of the house. And if they throw me out of the house, then what do I do? So the whole question is about, nobody tells us about this, right? Like I came to know about this when I got my first paycheck and I saw that my CTC what was told to me and what I got in my hand was not what CTC divided by 12 was. Like, it was simple realization. And then I was like, what is all these other things? Like, it was written HRA, it was written that, it was written this, that tax, employee tax, God knows, a lot of other things. And then I was like, what is all this? Like, nobody told us about this. And even when I went to the office for the first time, when I had a proper HR session to understand the work culture of the company, to understand the different things, everybody knew that I was just a graduate out of a college. I just finished engineering. I'm joining as a junior engineer. Like, nobody even told me that. Like, the HR, who's like the head of this department taking care of everything on that paper, on that pay slip, even didn't explain it to me. So then that's when I understood that we are not often told about this. And also because we are not told about it, we really do not know what to do about it, right? Like, how do you do tax savings? What is ATC? What is the different ways that you can save up money? Like, even if you're in college, what are the different online or offline part-time jobs that you can do? And irrespective of where you come from, right? Like, if you can work and if you can start earning money for yourself, there is a difference in that whole feeling from what you used to do before. Like, if I go to a grocery store with my mother, I just take 2 packets of biscuit and I put it into the trolley. But if I go myself using my card where the money came from my salary, I take the biscuit and I see how much that biscuit's price is and then decide whether I should take 1 or 2. So that difference, not that I come from a high class family. No, I come from a very middle class, so-called big bucket in India. But still, realizing that that's important is because now you know how much is coming every month, and you know that you have to last for the next 30 days with it, and also start saving because you have dreamt of doing something. It can be traveling, it can be getting a car, it can be buying something that you like. And why this is also crucial is, one, obviously, for me, the biggest thing is, as a woman, whatever sets you back, if you're financially independent and if you have a good financial plan, it is a good way of saying a no back to people who keep pushing you or keep, ghosting you. Or, like, for some people, women are invisible just because they think you are not capable of, right? And this is something else that I really like from Sudhamurthy, which is, if you try to please everybody, you will please no one. Like, it's impossible to lead your life for others' happiness. And by default in our culture, women are always tagged as empathetic, sympathetic, emotional, kind, warm, loving. So all these words kind of attribute you to be, the goddess, like the mother of the world. And then you have to please everybody. You have to make sure that nobody, feels bad about the situation. Nobody is affected by your decision. This is how we are forced to. I mean, this is something that I'm struggling even today, which is, I want to get out of that. I want to stop thinking about 7 billion people when I am trying to do something, which is, like, in a way a good thing, because sometimes it helps me to do foundational kind of works. But at the other times, like, we are not taught to be selfish. When I use the word selfish, I have to be super careful when I tell you that there's a good part of being selfish. Like, often that word is populated out with so much negativity that people stop thinking for themselves. And the biggest barrier for women is that the thought that they can't have it all, as Katie said, which is, we often think that we cannot have it because obviously 100 years of history talk to us said nothing of this happened. Like, there was never a woman president at FIFA, or there was nobody like this at some place. So this keeps pushing us. And is it important? It is important. But then it is important how you weigh the good and the wrong sides of it. And here is when I want to talk about LinkedIn, right? Like, if you go to LinkedIn and if you look at women versus men profiles of the same job, same company, you will see that men take the effort to show it out. Like, they want to do personal branding. They'll write about things. They'll make sure their profile looks amazing, ready for a job. Women often have LinkedIn just because, it's a prerequisite, or maybe having a LinkedIn is important to do a search, or they update their LinkedIn only when they're looking for work. So, like, the whole branding or branding yourself, branding your personality is not the main focus. Again, this is also a cultural thing. It also comes from the imbibed family setup or society that we come from, where, you don't have to show off. Like, you are the person who's kept inside, or you can be the, underlying person. You can do everything from the underground and nobody needs to know who you are. Like, you're good. Like, even if you're amazing, you don't have to go build your personal brand. But often for men, it's not like that. If you're amazing, just go put it out there. Tell the world that you have done something. So people use these technologies and they kind of work with it constantly because the cultural concept behind how they are is very different. And I think before we move on to the panel discussion, one thing I really want to tell everybody is that everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't know. And when I say everyone, literally every single person. Like my maid knew something that I didn't know. Like my maid told me that do this and you'll be fine. My grandmother knows something which I do not know. My mother knows something I do not know. And what I do as a person is every time I meet someone, at least now it's remote, but every time I meet someone, I try finding something that I didn't know from them. It can be in the middle of a conversation, it can be in the middle of a business meeting, but try getting or grasping one thing that you didn't know from them, and also try giving something you know which you think they might not know to them. So this is how the world gets better, or this is how you get more information. You cannot be reading the whole library, right? So it is people who kind of weave this setup for you. And there's so much of data and network around us that this is not a difficult task anymore. Like it is doable, it is easy to do. And for me, I started leading myself. Like a lot of people ask me, like, can you take leadership session? No, there is no leadership session, and nobody is born as a leader. That's another myth that runs around in the society. Oh, he was a born leader. Oh, she belongs to that family. Her parents have always been leading in the business. She's by default going to be like that. No, like say no to people who say such things to you. Anybody can be a leader. Leader is just about taking care of the multiple things and being spontaneous and reacting to problems. Or it's basically problem solving skills, considering the different factors or the different key stakeholders in the situation. It's basic problem solving 101, but putting consideration to the people involved, putting consideration to the situations involved, putting consideration to the scenario. And that's something that you can learn. So if you start learning to leading yourself, taking care of yourself, managing your things, then it by default imbibes in you the capacity to lead others. And if anybody thinks of growth, which is what everybody thinks of, right? Nobody wants to be doing a junior engineer role for 50 years and then retire. People want to keep going past in that ladder. So if you can learn that by default, then you actually can see that working in your day-to-day life and also around people. So small things like, I used to feel bad when I used to tell people that I have OCD, because that used to be just a joke by saying that, oh, you just want to keep your things clean, or you're just being a bit of fussy. But it's clearly a problem, right? Like I talked to my therapist about it. It is a problem sometimes. Like it irritates me, it frustrates me, but I kind of try to use that weakness of mine into a very good thing. Like that helps me in the kind of work I do. That helps me do 3 jobs at the same time. That helps me handle like 1,000 people team and also do my personal stuff at the same time. That really helps me in remote work. So, like sometimes when you discover yourself, and when you know your flaws as well as your strengths, like if you do a SWOT analysis of yourself as a person, it kind of helps you to pull chains here and there. And like something else that I keep doing is, if you really want to try something, please do not wait for opportunities to come to your house, ring the doorbell and say, are you free? Are you interested in coming to us? Go out and hunt for opportunities. When I was back in my engineering college, when I started reading about things around the world, I understood that living in a city like Kollam in Kerala, studying in a college like TKM is not going to give me all the opportunities in the world, right? Like nobody is going to come all the way from Kollam, like all the way from NASA to Kollam saying, oh, listen, you're interested in space. We have an internship. Are you interested to do that? No, nobody from Mercedes AMG team is going to come and say that, oh, you're a mechanical engineer and you're one among the many boys or the male dominated class in your college. And are you interested in doing something? No. So for me, what I did is I started being a volunteer. Like this photo that you see, I was a registration volunteer when I was in my second year of college, which basically all IEEE students will know, which is you sit outside the conference hall giving lanyards and tags to speakers and delegates who come. I was that like, like 7, 8, not 8, like almost 9 years back. And 6 years with them, I grew from being a volunteer to being a speaker at the event, because parallelly, I was also evolving in my life. I did other things. This was like a side gig for me, which I enjoyed doing. And same is the things that happened with me at sports. I started my first ever sporting gig as being a volunteer for something called the National Games in India that happens biannually across the country. And it was happening in Kerala. And I was like, why not volunteer? And it was part of my college credits or whatever. And then I went for it. But eventually that took me to a process where I could be an employee for FIFA, which is the biggest sporting organization in the world. So, starting off as a volunteer and then going all the way to becoming a manager, like a paid manager for a FIFA tournament, and then also getting featured on FIFA.com was not what I planned. Like I never wrote 5-year plans. I didn't know. If you ask me a question to me now, what do you want to be in 5 years, or what do you think you will be in 5 years? My answer is I do not know. I know that tomorrow I have to travel to Italy for the second part of my college. I know that I will be studying this and I plan to do this. That's all the information I have. So,
am I audible?
Yes.
So sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, but we have a time limit. I think it's better to conclude.
Yeah, sure. So
it's a very interesting talk, but one of our panelists needs to be.
No problem. I'm just done. So basically, throughout all of this, I was just trying to say that the little choices that you make actually makes a lot of difference. So those who can, they do, and those who can do more, they often volunteer, and they just find their own path. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, all the panelists. We had a very interesting and engaging discussion. I'm very sorry to break Aisha because she was really speaking from her heart. But Ashwati has a program immediately after this. So I just had one question to ask Ashwati. Ashwati, is there some ceiling that you have hit and you feel that we feel that there is always a saying that there is some ceilings, invisible ceilings, the barriers that are put for women. And in your life, was there any ceiling that you felt that you broke? I know that you've been active in so many areas, but is there any personal incidents which you would like to share, or life have been very fair to you? Ashwati?
Yeah. Can you ask me that question again? Sorry, Anu, I was driving.
Oh, I'm sorry you left you. It's okay. Ashwati, my question is, yesterday onwards, we have been just listening to that. There are some invisible ceilings that has been left for women. Like they reach up till there, it's difficult to go beyond that. But our panelists are talented women who have broke over those ceilings, those glass barriers. Do you have any incident which you think in your life, and what caused you to break that, gave you that momentum to break that ceiling that was hindering you from going forward?
Yeah. So thank you, Anu, for that question. Yes, there has been something in my life. See, especially when you have a child with special needs, there is a lot that is expected from you as a mother. And, I wouldn't say that the society is not very kind. I don't want to say it like that. But there can be a lot of expectations that are put on you. The fact that now your life is all about, being a mother and doing things. And, like the first 3 years of my daughter's life, I mean, fortunately, she's growing up to be a lovely lady. But first there was so many expectations put on me. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do. This is what the society expects. So I think initially it was so hard to break from all that, because like 1,000 voices all around you saying that, you're a mother. This is what you cannot have a life of your own. You cannot find your own passion because now this is it. So I think that was one of the I would say the biggest breakthrough in my life at that phase, when I actually sat down and I thought, is this all? Is my life all about just making people happy, or do I have the right to find happiness myself? So I think 8 years back, one day I decided that, also I was in a corporate banking job before this. So I was not even into coaching or any of this. So that's when I sat down and thought, what is it that really makes me happy? Chuck the income and all of that. But what is it, when you pursue your passion, it's not your job. You really love doing this every day. So I think 8 years back, Anu, was the time when I actually thought and I decided, no, I have a right to be happy. I have a right to do things. It doesn't matter what the world says, because at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I need to think that, I am happy, my family is happy, all's well. So I think 8 years back is the day when, I sort of broke. I don't know if it's a ceiling or something stronger than that. And till day, I think I completely follow that. At the end of the day, if I'm happy, my kids, my husband, that's all that matters to me, not really the world.
Right. Thank you. And I think that's the secret of your positivity.
Absolutely, Anu. Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Ashwati. I think we will let you go. We have a virtual memento which we want to share to you because it's a virtual event. So
Absolutely.
can we have it shared on the screen, please? So Ashwati is a TEDx speaker. She speaks in Toastmasters. She is the main person in the Toastmasters, I think, in Kerala section, right? You are the director.
I was the division director.
Thank you, Ashwati, for taking the time in your schedule to being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Maria, Dr. Maria, Asha, and Aisha, can we just take a couple of more minutes of your time? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Maria, one thing that, we were resonating, every person was resonating was that, and I think a couple of us were resonating was the role of, when the COVID came, the life became very unorganized, right? You had like home and work, everything was mixed together. So yesterday also one speaker was there. I think today one of the paper presentations was saying there is a lot of time, but difficulty in organizing things. It's like there are a lot of tasks, lot of time. Earlier you used to do a lot of time in commuting, which is not there now. But again, to put everything in track is very hard. So is there any practical things that you did to actually put everything in track? And how old is your baby?
She's just 2 years, and it's very hard. I mean, if it were, it is in one way very good, because I was thinking of putting her in a daycare post 9 months, and the pandemic kind of made me spend more time with her. So that was a big plus that I got to. I would have never realized what I would have missed. But that said, I think it took a huge toll on how I could schedule, because it just made things so haphazard. And I can only say, looking back, that I should have just waited for it. I mean, telling myself that it's all temporary was one way out, and that she would grow up, she would have a regular sleep schedule around which I could, schedule tasks. But if it wasn't if there wasn't a pandemic, I think India would really benefit from having very good daycares, not these ad hoc daycares, but really professionally run ones. I wish that would be there within our academic institutions, and it would be affordable, because I see most people telling us, daycares are a scary story unless you live in a big city or you're ready to pay through your nose. So I wish that kind of a systemic change would happen. I would love to do that in my institution, but I'm scared that if I bring it up, immediately the next thing is, why don't you do it? Most often that's what happens, and I don't really have the time to do it. I'm hoping that, when my kid's big enough to go to school, I can do it for the younger faculty who join my institution. I can just take it up. But right now I want to prioritize, and I can't take up more things into my hands. But this is what more often than not happens. I mean, washrooms are a mess. That way I envy the corporate world, where these things are automatically taken care of because they've got such good HR policies. And I wish the Indian academic institutions would get better at that. But that said, I was asking, I was looking at my husband's, whether it's product management, whether it's coding, you don't find a lot of women. And I would like to ask Ashwati as well, that if she wanted to continue in her corporate banking job with a special needs kid, how easy would it have been for her? Because I've seen a lot of people, in late night calls, or how easy would it have been for her? I mean, now she has her own schedules. I mean, not that it's not that easy, I would agree, but still, I'm not very sure, because with all such great HR policies, I still find very few women in the senior director levels or whatever at corporate world, and that's scary and sad, and I have no idea. And it's.
I think we will point that question to Asha Chako. 23 years in TCS, and let's see, like she was talking about work without boundaries. That is actually frightening for me at a certain point of time, because the work time is going to eat your personal time. So how does she think about that?
Sure.
Asha, are you hearing us?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Anu. So maybe I am an outlier. For me, I enjoy my work. So for people who talk about, doing what you love as for your vocation, and those circles that Aisha was showing us earlier, right? So I think I have been really blessed to be in a job that I love. So being in those meetings and, instructing my team and getting work done and getting goals accomplished gives me a sense of satisfaction that nothing else does. At the same time, I am, of course, one of those women who have embraced, marriage. I have a family. My babies are much older than most of yours. My first one is an adult. Oldest is an adult, 18 years old and in college. My second one is in high school, 14. So I am past those struggles that you just mentioned, Maria, behind me. But yes, that's a phase for all of us, and enjoy it while it can.
And
Yeah.
But it's so women, especially me, I'm so guilty when I say that I want to work or I love to do what I do, and for me it's not a strain at all. And it becomes such a guilt-ridden statement when we say that when you have a small baby that I post maternity, post 9 months, I long to get back to work, and I have my husband looking at me like, seriously, they just want to take it. They like love to get out of work, and I'm one of those people. I think that is also the case with a lot of researchers I know.
Thank you.
We don't
Maria. I
work
want
for
to
the
come
money.
back to that question and finish answering, and I'll hand it back.
So sorry. Yeah, sure.
So Anu, that you asked me how do I manage that work without boundaries. To be realistic, I work for an Indian software company, and not just TCS. Even if you work for any multinational with an offshore counterpart, and then you have your team, your supervisors across the world, you do expect flexible hours. That's part of the job description. And if I was not up to it, I should not have taken the job. I've taken it, and happy for that. The way that I manage my work is, sometimes I do get very early in the morning, like today, although this was not work, for work. And sometimes there are those days that I have to get into calls and meetings very late in the night. But the one thing that's really worked for me is I might be very busy in the mornings, I might be very busy in the evenings, but there are blocks of time in between that I can actually carve out to pick up my son from school, fix a meal for my family. So it's not like I'm sitting in front of the computer for 24/7. When I need to be working and focused, and I know that my mornings and my evenings are going to be busy, I carve out the rest of the time. So that's how I have actually been able to manage my work-life balance. For me, I really don't think it should be work and life in two compartments. Oh, I draw a line at 5 o'clock. It doesn't work in the IT industry. It hasn't worked for me. For rather, it is more like, it's an integrated life. You are one person. Your work is part of your life. So that's how it's worked for me. Back to you, Anna. Thanks.
I think even when work without boundaries comes, some places you have to set some boundaries for the time. Maybe but we are very glad that you're able to strike the balance.
Yeah, I'd like to add again, isn't it the case that, when there isn't much of a boundary, when you're expected almost any time, now you have a fixed schedule, and it helps to have a schedule. But workplaces like Amazon, I don't want to quote, but have expected people, or even for that matter, a lot of places like Salesforce and all these places where people are expected, they may not be expected 24/7, but at any point in time where they can't really schedule around the times, have seen women drop out of the workplace. How integrated you say that? I mean, I think for a women, flexible hours, but at the same time, able to schedule things around their work really helps. The fact that you have your day during the day empty is nice, but if it's not the case where you have to be around, you have meetings in a week that you don't know when it's going to be scheduled. It could be sometimes late in the night, it could be in the morning. That's the case, for example, with my husband's job. I would say it makes it increasingly hard for women to be around. Personally, I believe that if the workplace needs to have more women, it should have a lot more schedules, or at least a little more fixed schedules to retain more women.
Right, Maria, I too agree with you completely. Right, balancing wearing the multiple caps that you are telling is a very challenging job for a woman. Right, and even when we think we were thinking instead of women in engineering, we should be talking persons in engineering. But somehow, some place that woman part comes in.
No, it's I would have liked it if it was for men as well. I mean, it would have really helped if my husband had a fixed work schedule, then I can schedule my date time with his meetings as well. Yeah, persons for sure, at least when you have small kids.
Yeah. Right. And Aisha, I think because of the shortness of time, it's a very interesting discussion and a very interesting and engaging talk. But because of the shortness of time, I'm just closing with one question to Aisha. Aisha, Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Aisha, I like the statement you talk about being comfortable in your chaos, right? It's very difficult for me to understand. And I think you have taken a very different path, very untraditional path for a typical Kerala girl that is coming from here, starting from your mechanical engineering, right? So how do you actually, like, I think one strong part for your character is the power to organize yourself. Other than that, what is one particular personality trait that helps you in actually doing all this? You're very impulsive, or you are very risk taking, or what is that one characteristic that makes you jump into all these things?
So I think I don't know if it's a personality trait, even which I recently discovered. So when I started doing therapy, my therapist told me that I have this innate nature to just jump at things and solve it. Now, I was trying to understand, where did I get it, right? So obviously, the whole process of therapy takes you back to your growing up days and things like that. So he says that it comes from the growing up phase where my mother was a single parent. Both my parents remarried. They had different lives, and I was the only child. So what happens is, now you're technically independent in this world because your mother got married. She has a family. I have half siblings there. My father got married. He has a wife, and there is half siblings there. So, somewhere inside you, you start feeling like you are left alone, which is a bad feeling. Like, I'm not saying that it's a great feeling. It was a bad feeling while I was growing up. And I was pretty much dependent on my grandmother. And my mother was an only child. So I was my grandmother's only grandchild. So, all these were situations when if I have to write a book, these are like the sad parts of my story, right? But I look at it as the good part, because that kind of made me feel like when I hit 18, which is the legal age to work in a country like India, or that's the age where I finish my primary schooling, I need to start being independent. So I took that, how do I say? I took that like a promise to myself. And since I hit 18, I have not taken money from both my parents or from anybody else. So I studied in TKM, 100% funded by Kerala government, because I was a district topper in Thrissur. I'm doing my current course where I crowdfunded half of my education, and I also got loans from people I know, like mentors from IEEE, other people who I'm repaying every month by doing small consulting works here. So, and also the thing is, it's me, and I take care of my grandmother because I'm her only grandchild. So for me, it is me. And by the age I was 22, when I had my first job, I told my mother that from today, I'm going to take care of my grandmother. So from 22, I was me with a dependent, because when I fill a form for UK, I have to write, is there a dependent? Yes, I have a dependent. My grandmother is my dependent. So, like, for me, I think that part by default pushed me into going forward and saying that, okay, if I do not make money today, or if I do not go to work, I cannot eat food. So when it is that close, then you actually keep pushing yourself. And I totally agree to what Asha ma'am said, right? Which is, you cannot never cut your professional and personal life. I do not understand when people say that you can actually cut off your brains between these two. I'm just one body, like I'm one body, one head, one mouth, and one set of senses. So every time I will think about, if there is a bad day at work, I will come back and think about it. Like, you cannot expect my brain to just cut it as I walk into the house. Or you cannot expect, if say my partner is having an issue and I go to work, I'm constantly going to think about the fight that I had with my partner. Like, that's going to be there. Like, that is how human beings are, and that is how we are designed. But all we can do is, I don't even know striking balance makes sense. We can strike some lines. It necessarily might not be balance. It might be up on one day, it might be low on one day, but you somehow juggle between it. Like, I sometimes do work when I'm sitting in the toilet. Like, I don't mind telling it to people. I'm like, that's the 15 minutes I'm going to get. Let me do my language classes when I'm there. Or, I listen to something when I'm taking a shower. Like, it is hectic, but I just do it. So I think all of us are like that. Everybody in this conversation are people who do it on a daily basis. And we are forced to do it because of the 100 years of history behind us. So yeah, so I think, I think it's not a personality trait. It's a life scenario that kind of pushed me into getting a personality trait.
Right. You are very inspiring. Like, one word that I remember, like in Malayalam, if you say, you are a sambhava. You know that word?
Yeah, I know that word.
Right, you are a very different young lady that we have got in IEEE, and we are glad that you are part of our volunteer movement and you're still there at our beckoning space, right? Thank you, Aisha, for taking the time here. We are really proud of you, right? And we are sure that you'll reach much heights with all your, like, pursue your dreams, and we are going to see big, big things to come from you. Same with our family. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Asha, for your valuable time. We know we have stolen your 17 minutes also, right? But we really value it. We really value so much. So I'll just hand over to Dr. Sabik, who will be actually concluding the session. Thank you so much. No words to explain.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Anu. So BGB, Beyond Glass Barrier, started in 2019 with the aim of this workshop to inspire and empower and lead budding women in the area of engineering and technology. So this panel discussion, which had a great conversation between a group of effective leaders from different areas or organization. And I believe that this panel discussion with the motto that we have with the workshop is met really, because we had 4 great panelists from different areas, and all have given their inspiring experiences, who have shared their experiences, which have inspired all the audience over here. So all 4 panelists were given their opening remarks. So Dr. Maria Francis emphasized the challenges and opportunities faced by the women in academia. Ms. Asha Chako gave with respect to industry perspective and what all problems faced during the pandemic time. Ms. Ashwati Dinal addressed the problem faced by a woman during lockdown. So she was emphasizing that it was the real period where a woman had faced a lot of problems. And finally, we had a young lady who had given emphasized 3 points that we should take care, and they were self-development and financially be independent, and talked about personal branding. Overall, we see that the panel discussion was thought-provoking and insightful. It educated, inspired, and sparked the audience curiosity. And we have some takeaways from this hot discussions. So women need to take all challenges positively, and there are a lot of opportunities for women in industry which need to be cracked, and women should not fear about some STEM subjects, as Dr. Maria Francis was telling. And we need to discover and prepare oneself for attracting opportunities, and encourage always technology. So hope that these takeaways will be definitely benefiting all of us in future. So with this, we come to the end of this panel discussion. And before winding up, I would like to thank all the panelists. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Maria Francis for sparing 1 hour, more than 1 hour with us, and participating in this panel discussion on women in academia. Thank you, Dr. Maria Francis.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure, actually. It was very nice hearing from the other panelists as well. Very inspiring, actually. I mean, but I wish we were not exceptions and we were more of the norm. And I just wish that was the case.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So next, I would like to thank Ms. Asha Chako-George, who also joined with us from US and given a wonderful session, wonderful talk, and also had a wonderful interaction with the audience by answering some questions raised by the moderator. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So next, I would like to thank Ashuti Dinal, who has already left the section because of personal obligations. Anyway, she also spared with us, given wonderful session, interaction with the audience. I would like to thank Ms. Ashuti Dinal too. Thank you, ma'am. Then we had Aisha Nazia. I would like to thank Aisha Nazia for sparing with us from UK and having a good interaction with us. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So finally, I would like to thank all the organizers for bringing up such a good event, especially Dr. Anu Mary Chacko, who framed all the events for this particular program. So I would like to thank all the organizing committee members. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants who have taken their time, valuable time in spending with us and giving, especially the participants who had given their paper presentation and the other participants who have attended this particular panel discussion. Thank you on behalf of IEEE Malabar Subsection. I thank all the participants as well as the panelists who have spared their valuable time with us. Thank you.
I think we are closing this.